to revise the language of argument and persuasion and to look at key elements of those language genres that you might see in a text. So why do we do this? Well, don't forget, a lot of you will answer the question A's. This is the 2019 exam. And when you answer the question A, you will know that usually the third question is a style question. So here's the style question from Text 1, 2019 exam. Identify 4 elements of argumentative or persuasive language evident in Text 1 and explain why their use might encourage readers to agree with the views expressed by the writer. Okay, so that's the kind of question that you have to be prepared for. You have to be able to look at a passage and say, okay, I know what I'm looking for. If somebody asks me to comment on the use of argumentative or persuasive language, I know if it's 20 marks, I'm going to write 4 paragraphs. And even this year, if it's only 15 marks, I'm still going to write 4 paragraphs because I want to show ambition and I want to show hunger and I want to show the examiner that I'm working hard. So I need to know what I'm looking for. So we know what you're looking for. Let's go through it very, very quickly, okay? You already have this document. So what are you looking for? A clear thesis. Okay, a clear thesis. So what does that mean? It means the piece has to have a purpose. It must be clear throughout the piece that the writer's point of view is expressed directly to the reader. So if you have a look here at this article, this is a brilliant piece of journalism that was published only a few days ago by the wonderful, fantastic, talented Johnny Watterson in the Irish Times. And Johnny Watterson is writing this piece about drug abuse in sport. Now, I'll come back to the title in a second, but if you look, he starts off with, do you know the war on drugs is over? It has been lost. And then throughout the passage, he says things like, people are moving on, the dopers have won, the dopers have won. And at the end of the passage, he says, we have all been beaten down, the battles will continue, but the war on drugs is over, it has been lost, the good guys have been beaten, the bad guys are calling the shots. So there is no doubt whatsoever, when you read that passage, there's no doubt what Watterson's point is. And that's what argument persuasion needs to have at the core. There has to be a central point that's being argued, or a central point that the writer is trying to, or the speaker indeed, if it's a speech, is trying to persuade the audience is true. So a thesis is at the core. Any piece of writing needs to have an engaging opening. If you want to argue a point, if you want to convince people that you're right about something, if you want to persuade people that they need to agree with you, well, then you need to catch their attention at the start. And if you catch their attention at the start, you're much more likely to be listened to, or they're much likely to draw you in. So look out for an engaging opening. And again, if you look at Watterson's piece, you'll see here, he says, all this talk of COVID and the Olympics, but did you see the white flag go up? Do you realise that dopers have won? Do you know the war on drugs is over? It has been lost. The good guys have been beaten. The bad guys are calling the shots. Now, what do you see there? Very direct language. What's the writer doing? Speaking directly to the reader. Now, that is a very impactful approach. Speaking directly to the reader. He's doing it on purpose because he wants to grab our attention. He's being aggressive at the start. And not only is he doing that, but he's also making sure that we understand clearly what the article is about, and he's asking rhetorical questions. Look, there's 1, see the question mark? There's 2, and there's 3. So those rhetorical questions are designed to provoke our curiosity, designed to draw us in, designed to make us interested, and that's exactly what he's doing. So he's a professional journalist. He knows that if his reader reads the first paragraph and they're bored or they're not curious or he doesn't stimulate them, well, then they're probably going to click out of it and go to the next article, and then he doesn't get his numbers. So effective argumentative writers, effective persuasive writers, they craft an engaging opening, which is designed to create curiosity and startle the reader. A really good piece of language of argument or persuasion will have a logical circular structure. This is the coherence of delivery element of the Leaving Cert marking scheme is all about having a logical and circular structure. Again, look at Watterson's article, an absolutely brilliant piece of journalism. As I said, he begins with the good guys have been beaten, the bad guys are calling the shots. he ends with, the good guys have been beaten, the bad guys are calling the shots. That's called a circular structure. He's making sure that the beginning, middle, and the end of the passage are connected. So he begins with his statement. He reinforces that statement at the end. He doesn't say, thus, in conclusion, I believe that. He just goes straight back to where he began. And it connects up. It means that the readers, when they finish the article, there's a sense of resolution. And in the middle, that's where the meat of the passage is. We'll come back to that in a second. If you are writing a piece which is designed to be convincing or persuasive, convincing meaning argumentative, persuasive meaning obviously persuasion, then you need the reader to be able to bloody read it and understand what's been said. So when you read this piece, you'll see that Watterson uses language in very, very simple fashion. He doesn't overcomplicate things. He keeps his sentences nice and simple, nice and clear. And actually, he uses quite a lot of imagery in the piece, but we'll come to that in a second. But just look at the language here. We'll pick this paragraph randomly. It was heading that way for a long time, but a few things have happened. Actually, the Giro, it's a big cycle race in Italy, this week was won, a big cycling classic with all the bells and whistles. It wasn't so much the race itself as that long ribbon of colour snaking across Italy, a reminder of the big surrender that has taken place. And nobody seems to mind that much. Now, this is a guy writing for a broadsheet newspaper. This is a guy writing for the Irish Times, which is a fantastic, brilliant newspaper, and I cannot recommend, as you lead up to your exam, but also in your life, that you read that newspaper. It's a fantastic newspaper if you want to see good writing. Okay, so the language is accessible. The register or tone that he's using is appropriate to the audience. Don't forget, if you're making a speech, that's particularly important, but also if you're writing a piece of journalism, that's important. And then crucially, for argument especially, but also for persuasion, the writing has to be evidence-based. Now, this is the key. If he makes this bold statement, the war on drugs is over, it has been lost, and then he's not able to back that up with specific source material or evidence, well, then the article is weak. But watch what he does. He refers to the Giro. He refers to the Dr. Richard Freeman judgment last March. He knows that Dr. Richard Freeman was the Team Sky doctor. He gives all this detail. Look, he admitted 18 of 22 charges against him relating to the order of a package of testicle, excuse me if I mispronounce that, to British Cycling Headquarters. The BMC, which took the case, said the evidence of Dr. Freeman was dishonest, incapable of innocent explanation, implausible. What are they? Quotes. So this man has done his research. Okay? He has done his research. He knows his detail. And he fills the passage with detail. He refers to the tribunal chair, Neil Dalton. He refers to a question that was asked by the tribunal chair. He then refers to an answer in a direct quote given by the witness. So we have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of evidence in the passage, okay? It's really, really good. He goes on to refer to John Tracy, who was in charge of the Irish Olympic Council. He goes on to refer to the behaviour of the International Olympic Committee and their treatment of Russia. Okay? So this is a very, 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 very strong article because it is evidence-based. He gives us very specific, he's done his research, he knows his stuff. He's able to support the point he's making with evidence. He uses anecdotes, allusions, quotations, statistics, and so on. All of these things are in the passage in order to give substance to the passage, in order to make the passage believable. Now, if you go from here and work your way around to there, that's all the language of argument. Okay, that's all the language of argument. Now, when you think about persuasion, that's when you start bringing in things like emotive language, buzzwords, the conscience factor, association, suggestion, implication, rhetorical questions, juxtaposition, and stark contrast. Now, all of those things need to be understood, not in the abstract, but in the concrete. So again, let's go back to the wonderful Johnny Watterson. Thank you for writing this piece, Johnny, just when I needed to be able to show my students this kind of writing. Look at this here. Boom, boom. This is what we're dealing with. Look at that. Boom, boom. He's making a joke. He's laughing at what the evidence that was given. He says that what was funny in that sadly repetitive shaggy dog story of an inquiry was that although there was a smoking gun, there was no corpse. He refers to all the lies and subterfuge, all the mendacity, which means the quality of being wicked or evil, has worn him down. He refers to the IOC, which partially pays for the operations of the World Anti-Doping Agency, and the fact that it has magnificently undermined its own work. That is highly emotive language. The words lies, subterfuge, mendacity, magnificently undermined. The words smoking gun, corpse. These are all buzzwords. This writer is using language in a very biased way, in a very emotive way, to persuade the reader of the truth of his case. He's writing with colour. He's using imagery. The image of the shaggy dog story, which is something which is of no value. He's referred the image of the smoking gun, the image of the corpse. These are all very, very, very clever examples of aesthetic language. The IOC has so profoundly caved in to the industrial cheaters. Look at the language there. The language there is very, 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 very emotive. This image of an organization being put under so much pressure that it collapses under the force of not just cheaters, but industrial cheaters. So these are examples of buzzwords. There's the conscience factors that play there, because the idea of lies and mendacity and so on and so forth, we're supposed to feel horrified by such things. The juxtaposition of what the IOC is supposed to do and what they actually do is very effective, and we've already seen the rhetorical questions. So that's a very, very, very good example of persuasive language. Finally, really, really good persuasive writers, and if you're going to write a speech, you do this, they use inclusive language. Oh, sorry, wrong screen. And look what he does here. He's speaking to his readers, and his readers are Irish people, most likely Irish people, because it's an Irish newspaper he's writing for. And just look at what he does here. In that exasperation, we all live. We line our Irish athletes up, 65 and counting, and say to them, do your best. We tell our boxers that it is not dangerous to climb into a ring against a possible lab bunny. We tell our track and field athletes hard training and talent will win it. When it won't, it can't. Again, that's a great example of juxtaposition there. We tell them, they'll win when they won't and they can't. Great contrast between, the dream and the reality. But the most interesting thing there is the use of the repetition of the plural personal pronoun. We, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's loads and loads and loads of times in the piece. So what he's doing there is creating a sense of inclusivity between himself and his reader, A sense of inclusivity between himself and his reader, making the reader feel as if they're being directly addressed, making the reader feel as if they're involved in the discussion. And of course, if you can make your audience feel involved, if you can make your audience feel invested, if you can make the audience feel that this is personal, well, then you've got a much better chance of persuading them. So, the question in 2019, sorry, it's the wrong thing. That's the next video I'm going to do. The question in 2019 asked students to find 4 elements of argumentative or persuasive language. What do you look for? An engaging opening, a clear thesis, evidence that's used to support the point, accessible language, emotive language, buzzwords, bias, repetition, rhetorical questions. Wow, there's a lot of things you can look for. So that's a little bit of a revision for the key elements of argument and persuasion. One final thing before I finish this video. A common question that's asked, a very common question that's asked, is for you to write a newspaper article, or to write a magazine article, or to write a blog, or an article for a school website. They're effectively all the same format. Don't forget, Johnny Watterson is writing his article for the Irish Times, and that article will be published both in the traditional hard copy newspaper and also online. What does he do? There's a headline which indicates what the piece is about. There's a subheading, and there's the name of the journalist. If you're going to choose to write a composition Or a question B answer, that is an article for publication. Give a headline, give a subheading, and make up the name of a journalist. Obviously, you won't use your own name, but make up the name of a journalist, because that makes the piece more authentic. And the more authentic your piece is, the better chance you have of scoring well. Okay, so that's the end of that.